Daniel Meyer, music director of the Erie Philharmonic, and this is another edition of Coffee Chat. I brought a coffee cup this time, but it's got nothing in it. I've already been through one cup out of the espresso maker, so I'm medium wired. But I'm really excited to talk to two of our musicians from the string section from the Erie Philharmonic. I've got Sarah Poe with me, member of the viola section, and Nadine Sherman, who's a member of the cello section. And first of all, welcome to you both. It's so great to see you. I miss you both very much, and I miss making music with you. So hopefully, I actually, as I just said to you, we are very busily working on plans for this coming season and making sure that we're back and making music for our friends and for our fans at the Erie Philharmonic as soon as it is safe and as soon as it is humanly possible. But in the meantime, I thought we would take this opportunity to get to know the two of you a little bit more. But let's start from basics. Do you both remember your first concert with the Erie Philharmonic, and do you maybe even remember your audition with the orchestra? Nadine, why don't we start with you?
Oh, I remember subbing with the Erie Phil back when I was still in college, and I would commute from Rochester, New York, and trek through the heavy winters. And so that goes back like a while ago. That goes back to maybe like 2013. Yeah, and then so by the time I became an official member, years later, it was a real celebration.
How about you, Sarah? Do you remember your first concert with the orchestra?
Well, I will say, I remember the first time I heard the Erie Philharmonic, and it was to visit and hear Nadine play. She had an opportunity to solo the orchestra when she was still in college. It was a pop show. It was Spy Theme, I think. Do you remember what piece you played, Nadine? I'm afraid I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, that was Vocalise. So that was, that was a special concert.
Yeah, it was amazing. So a few of us carpooled out there and got to hear her and performed and celebrate afterwards. So that was my first time hearing them and being in the Warner and seeing what a beautiful space they have to play in. And and then in my master's, I auditioned my first fall and got on the sub list. So I started subbing that year, and then the following year when I auditioned, I got in my first professional gig. So it's very exciting.
You know, a lot of people don't really appreciate what goes into the audition process. Do you remember a little bit about that day? And I mean, do you drive in the night before and stay overnight, or do you come in the day of? And I mean, what do you do to gear up for something like that?
Well, coming from Pittsburgh at the time, it wasn't too far of a commute, just 2 hours. So I did drive in the day of. But oftentimes, of course, like you want to go the night before, but it's a whole like preparation mentally, physically, emotionally, because it's so meaningful and you've been working so hard, so many hours every day. So yeah, by the time you get there, you wake up in the morning and you want to have your yogurt, coffee, but not too much coffee. You don't want to be too anxious. And and then it's usually a full day of ride of emotions and crash afterwards and a good night's rest.
And so when you take the audition, are you able to hear some of the other contestants when they're playing, or do they keep you in a different room? Or tell the audience a little bit about what it's like to actually to get psyched up for that specific moment when you get to play for the committee.
Often there is a shared warm-up space, and that was the case in Erie. We were all in a big room together, so you find your little corner of the room and set up, but everybody's warming up, so it's really hard to stay in the zone and just trust your own preparation and not kind of tune out everyone else playing the same excerpts that you've been working on and concertos and everything. So it's tricky, but gets better with experience and doing more auditions. So
yeah.
And the moment when you actually walk into the room, there's only one or two people you see, and it's not the people on the audition committee. The audition committee is made up of myself and generally the principal player in that section. So say in Nadine's case, it would have been the principal cello that was also sitting in on that audition. And then the orchestra committee can choose one other musician to sit on the panel. And generally, if it's the case of a string player, it would be another member of the string family. It could have been the concertmaster or some other principal in the string section. So when you first walk in, you actually don't even get to see the people that you're playing for, right? There's some sort of screen or something between you and the committee. What is it like to play in that way? Because we're not used to doing that. We're used to playing for human beings where we can gauge their reactions and actually see and hear what they're saying. I mean, does that have any effect on the way that you might play?
Yeah, I mean, the whole experience is really interesting. And, our musician friends, we always talk about it because it's like we have to tiptoe in and be aware of what shoes we're wearing, because if they're clicking or not clicking, because it's like, we want it to be a mystery. We don't want the panelists to know if we're female or male or anything, which is awesome. And then, but yeah, there's stories sometimes. It's like you start your excerpt in the wrong measure, or you go 2 measures too far. But then it's just over in just 5 minutes, and you gave it your best shot, and you leave, and um, it's it's interesting, not having that personal connection. But then afterwards, when you're in the orchestra and you see all these people, it's really wonderful to connect afterwards in that way.
And
Sarah, when you took your audition, do you remember if there was a second round? Did you play a first round, then come back for a second round? Do you remember?
I'm not sure. I think I must have. I must have.
Because typically what happens
There's the
is,
prelims. There's
right,
the prelims, and then yeah, there were a few
right, so we'll
people
hear,
the year I joined. So
yeah, we'll hear a whole round of first applicants. So let's say we may have as many as 25 applicants come on that day. So we have to get from the 25 down to maybe 5 or 6 or 7 in the second round. And then in some cases, we even hold a third round. And in that case is depending on the contract of the orchestra. In our case with the Philharmonic, we can elect if we want to take the screen down for that very final round. But we often make hires for the Philharmonic where we never actually see the person who won the job until we offer them the position, and then the screen comes down and we don't shake hands anymore, but we used to shake the candidate's hand and congratulate them and welcome them into the orchestra. But Nadine brought up a good point. It's part of the reason that we do what we call blind auditions is so that we really know nothing about the candidate other than how that candidate plays on that particular day. Do you remember from other auditions, Sarah, just you feel like, this did not represent the way that I play? Or did you ever?
oh heavens, yes.
That's happened?
Yeah. Yeah, more than once for sure, because the pressure and the performance nerves that are different for me, at least in an audition setting, than playing for a live audience, because everything is scrutinized, and you know that if you don't get every single note absolutely perfect, someone else will. So it's a little different than just playing for people for the enjoyment of it, which is what we all love so much. It's much more like I almost feel like a figure skating or athletic event where, like, if you can imagine watching the Olympics and the figure skaters, every little fall on the ice is like losing their chance to be on the podium. So I feel auditions are.
If I could tell people before they took auditions for us that we're not listening for mistakes, I would think that it would allay some people's fears, because we all understand that we make mistakes. For me, it's more, what do you do coming out of that mistake? In other words, if you make that mistake again, let's say the phrase is repeated and that mistake is made again, then they must have learned it wrong, or there was a mistake in preparation and it wasn't just a temporary slip or something attributable to nerves. But the more that I listen to these auditions, I also feel, that's the disadvantage of the situation, is that there's so much pressure built into it. But for many, many years, we haven't found an alternative that's better than that, just because we want to give everybody as much of an equal shot as we can. And also, if you think about it, it also provides a kind of a layer of protection for, let's say we're holding an audition for a principal player, and someone who's already in the orchestra wants to audition for that principal spot. Then having the screen up provides a layer of protection. Let's say that person doesn't play as well as they thought they could that day, or just doesn't go well at all. They don't want that to then negatively influence their colleagues and my opinion of their playing, going forward in the orchestra. So I also think that's kind of nice to add that layer of anonymity, if you will, in the initial rounds, because then if something doesn't go as planned, then it doesn't necessarily hurt that person's reputation. So I think that's also an important aspect of it. But I just thought we could give a little insight into that, because it is a very stressful way of gaining a seat in an orchestra. But as you say, ultimately there's a second aspect of it, and that is, do you get along well with others? And of course, that's the second aspect of it. There's a tenure review period where your colleagues are watching and listening to the way that you play and the way that you interact and the way that you're prepared for first rehearsals. And frankly, then I am in dialogue with those principals through the process, and then we make a determination, either a year or two into the process, whether or not we want to offer a full-time tenured position with the orchestra. So you both have been through that, and you both made it to the other side, and we love having you in the orchestra. And I thought we might shift gears a little bit now and just talk a little bit about your lives. Of course, this has been a ridiculous time and a very difficult time for musicians, because we essentially can't gather really in groups or in orchestras, except for in a very distanced way. And I know now a lot of orchestras now are talking about how they're going to come back and sit 6 feet apart from each other, and maybe even wear masks when they're playing and all that sort of thing. But tell us what this has meant for you personally in terms of not being able to make music as you normally do.
Well, it's definitely been a roller coaster ride, because when this first started, it seemed very temporary. You know, it seemed like it was just going to be 2 months. So 2 months or so. So I was like, all right, let's just take a break, enjoy it, you know, get outside, do some gardening. And then this will pass and life will go back to normal. And then there's like the panic stage. It's like, oh gosh, I need to like start a new career and consider job options, you know. But then there's, you know, after that, it's like perseverance and go back to practicing and like find like new ways, innovative ways to connect with people and share music, because it's so meaningful this time. I think that I'm honestly reconnecting with the truer like reason why I went into music, because music has been work for so long. But now I've had time to go back to like old repertoire that I played at my senior recital in college that I really loved, and why did I love this? And now I'm playing for fun more, and it's obviously a very hard time, but it's nice to have some silver linings with music.
How about you, Sarah? Do you feel motivated to get the viola up every day and chip away at it, or are there just some days you say, I can't get motivated?
Yeah, the orchestra motivates me more than I realize, because I love practicing the rep that we play. I was so disappointed not to get to play Beethoven 9. It's been on my bucket list forever, and I had it out, was listening to the recording, playing along with the recording. I do remember early into the quarantine when it was such a major adjustment that none of us had ever experienced, that listening through that entire symphony just sort of put me at ease and calmed me down. And I played along to the fourth movement, and it was just so normalizing and satisfying to listen to that. And I felt so grateful to have music in my life that way. But yeah, since then it's really challenging to stay motivated every day.
One thing that always surprises me when I've talked to other musicians is some of them say, I can't even listen to music or listen in the way that I used to. Or some of them just say, I can't listen to classical music. I have to listen to something totally different. Or I mean, what is your go-to soundtrack right now? Are you listening to music from years ago? Or are you still listening to symphonic music and classical music? What's your kind of, where do you find solace, or what kind of music do you like to plug into now?
I've always listened to a variety of music, and so I find myself putting something different on every day. Sometimes well, actually one genre that I do a lot, especially at my work, is movie soundtracks, because they are designed to be background music and they remind me of the story in the movies. One that I really love right now is Saving Mr. Banks. I don't know, and actually that ties into the Mary Poppins story and we're playing Mary Poppins next year. So if you haven't seen Saving Mr. Banks, I highly recommend it. It is about the making of that movie, starring Tom Hanks and Emma Thompson. So an all-star cast. Anyhow, score is by Thomas Newman, who wrote Finding Nemo. I don't remember all of his big scores, but beautiful music. So it's like somewhat classical, but movie soundtrack. Yeah.
How about you, Nadine?
Yeah, I love folk music a lot. So I've been listening to like the Punch Brothers, and I've always loved goat rodeo sessions with Yo-Yo Ma, and Edgar Meyer. And I think they just have a new album coming out. Actually, it's called like
Not
something.
Our First Rodeo, I think I saw.
So I'm dying to listen to that because they're all so talented, and I'm obsessed with how Yo-Yo Ma has gone from classical into more accessible music for audiences. And I love folk, and I just want to explore what I can do with my instrument that way. That's very like dance-like and upbeat, but also can have some, slower, more nostalgic songs too. So I'm listening to a lot of folk. Hmm.
I'm finding that I can take more time to explore. So if I read an article about a new artist in the New York Times or something like that, I'm like, oh, I actually have time to download that album and listen to it. And it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. I don't often have the time or take the time to do that. So that's one advantage, is just having more exploration time. And that I always complained about that in my pre-COVID life, is that I just didn't have enough time to kind of go down a rabbit hole that interested me, because I knew that I had to devote the time to getting prepared for the next concert. So I guess that in that degree, it's fun to be able to explore and listen to music that I wouldn't necessarily then have to interpret or make part of my work life. So that part is really cool. But I have to say, I miss my work life. I really do miss making music with everybody. And my instrument is the orchestra. So without other human beings, I'm like waving my arms to the couch. There's this great book. I don't know if you have ever heard of it. It's called The Armchair Conductor, and it's only about this big. It's hilarious. I was given this as a gag gift once, and it actually has a little baton that was shrink wrapped in with the rest of the book. And it teaches you, this is dating me, but it teaches you how to start the orchestra by listening to the clicks at the beginning of an LP. So when you put the needle down on an LP, it kind of makes a and then you calculate based on those clicks when you have to give the downbeat to start it. And it's hilarious. It shows you how to arrange your furniture into the brass section and the woodwinds and the strings. And just has some funny things about some conductors who have stabbed themselves with their baton and other goofy things. But it's called The Armchair Conductor. And it made me smile, because I think any of us who have ever been interested in conducting have done that before, put on a recording and just gone to town. So that's other than armchair conducting, I've been just kind of following other music that has actually nothing to do with classical music, which is fun. And then also just digging into some composers and other things that I think I'm.
Yeah, I love the theme playlists you've been coming up with. I've been checking out some of those.
Thank you. Those are actually really fun to put together. And the hardest thing is to come up with the theme, because once I have the theme, it's like, oh yeah, I remember this piece or that piece. And I'm trying to stick to just symphonic music. I mean, I could really open it up to chamber music and solo literature. And of course, the piano rep has incredible literature that I try not to touch, because I'm trying to stick to an orchestral only theme, but we'll see how long it runs. So if you have any theme suggestions, let me know, please. And anybody watching, if you'd like to hear a specific playlist, I'm having a lot of fun putting those together. Tell us about some special talents or things that we wouldn't know about you just by watching you on the stage. Maybe some other hobbies or things you like to do in your spare time when you don't have concerts to prepare for.
Well, I introduced you all to my puppy in one of my COVID videos, and she's just 1 year. Her birthday was on Monday, the 22nd. So she's kept me very busy. Lots of walks and training, but she's very lovable, and when she's not being sad. Nadine just got a new dog too. Two new dog moms.
Yes. Yeah. No, the plan was, we're like, oh yeah, we're going to get an older dog. It'll be easier to manage, some chill, like relaxed dog. And of course we go to like a couple places, and our second humane animal rescue location, and this cute puppy like comes up and gives me a kiss on the face. So I was like, oh, so we get this puppy, and he's completely
Puppy.
taken over the house. And he's American Staffordshire Terrier, and he's strong, and he's a little bowling ball through our house. So
A big puppy.
yeah,
I had the chance to meet him.
I had no idea. I just like am that classic person that just like gets a puppy and has no idea what they're getting into, and when you get that, yeah, that's a big thing. But it's been fun because we're also trying to get outside more since we have the time and do more gardening. So that's definitely been a new hobby. I have my first yard, so I'm learning a lot about the soil and plants and how things grow, and it's been really therapeutic too. So it's been nice.
I've also been doing a lot of running.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exercise is a good thing, particularly this time. But
yeah, it's one of the few things you can do.
even on the bike, try to wear the mask. Sometimes, when I'm just like running out of oxygen, I take it off just so I can get a breath of air. But it's hard to do both of those things, to try to kind of keep the mask on and exercise. But I'm just an outdoor kind of person. I love being outdoors. I'm really sad that the baseball season's not happening yet. And
I think I heard something on that front. That
Yeah,
they're starting the 25th.
Yeah,
like
they're going to be coming back,
season.
which is really exciting. I don't know if we're going to be allowed to go actually watch them, but at least we'll get some on television.
Right.
It'll be good. But I just love being outside and enjoying being out. And that is one advantage of having more time, is that we really make a concerted effort every day to get outside and enjoy it. But I have resisted the request for a new pet.
But so many pets are being adopted. It's great.
Yeah.
That's like some of these animal humane rescue centers have been emptied. So people are doing their duty. It's good.
Well, I'm grateful that you guys are some silver lining and have found some really positive things that have come out of this situation. Tell us a little bit about your lives, because I know a lot of us, a lot of musicians in our orchestra also have other obligations or other ensembles that they play in, or other jobs. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the other things that you do when you're not playing with the Erie Philharmonic?
Sure, I can start. I have a full-time day job, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. I'm in my office right now. And I work for a small manufacturing firm, and I'm in charge of the supply chain and production planning. So we make thermal and electrical insulation. So I order in raw material for our plant to convert. So completely not music. I've been in this job for a year and a half, and it's been a really, real learning curve, a learning experience, and a challenge for me. Partially why I wanted to try it. So that's what I've been up to.
How about you, Nadine?
Well, I've worked from home for a while because I do music and photography. For music, there's Erie Phil and a couple other orchestras I play with. So everything's kind of on hold with that, but I'm like amazed with how all of my orchestras are, staying in touch and communicating with us. But that's all on hold, and photography is very in limbo because I do a lot of wedding photography. So all my work is like events, between music, concerts, large events, and weddings. So, but again, like everybody's been super communicative, and we're just kind of dealing with things on an individual basis. And I'm still doing some photographing, like engagement sessions, like just, and then I also like real estate photography, and I'm trying to do more of that. That's like, I have time now to learn more with real estate photography, and that could be a good avenue. But yeah, it's like a lot of self-motivation since I don't have a full-time job or one employer that sets my schedule and my to-do list. It's very interesting that way. But now that I have my dog and my fiance at home, he's working from home now too, so we're staying on track.
My new job is contingency planning.
That's so true. So true.
on Zoom meetings, developing new strategies that then get scuttled the next day, and then it's back to the drawing board. So I will be very grateful to get back into the rhythm of making music and knowing exactly what's coming next. And I think we all feel a little bit of anxiety related to that. It's just, it's the unknown that's really hard to cope with. And I really want to get, and just the human, we are built to communicate with each other. We're built to be social people. And at least most of us are. And I'm really feeling that at this point. And I'm hoping that, that it's not too long before we can get back to whatever the new normal is going to be. We're going to find it because we have to. But I wanted just to take this opportunity to thank both of you, because this has been tough on all of our friends and all of our musicians, but we've been really grateful for your willingness to share a little bit of your lives and to talk to me today on this coffee chat. And we miss you very much, both of you, and we miss performing with our colleagues, and hopefully it's not very long when we get a chance to be back in front of our audience. We are right now in the middle of some really interesting and I think some very meaningful plans for the orchestra going forward in this next season, because as you know, we're homeless. The Warner Theater has a big hole in it right now, which is a very good thing, meaning it was a planned renovation, and the renovation plans are going ahead. The construction workers are there. They're doing what they're supposed to do, and rather than spread it out over 2 summers, it's all going to be done in one chunk, and that one chunk is happening right now. So the plans that we make for this coming season, while interesting and fun, I think will ultimately pay off in the return to the Warner Theater in a beautifully renovated backstage, and the orchestra is desperate to get some nice, comfortable places to keep themselves when they're not playing and to be heard. I mean, the biggest thing for me will be a new acoustical stage with a shell that completely surrounds the orchestra. It makes it really easy for us to communicate with each other, to hear each other, and then ultimately to get the sound of the orchestra out into the Warner Theater, which we all love and we all treasure as something that's very important to the Erie Philharmonic experience. So thanks to you both, and thank you for taking time out of your day to chat, and we'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. This is Daniel Meyer, Music Director of the Erie Philharmonic, talking to Sarah Poe, violist, and Nadine Sherman, cellist of the Erie Philharmonic.